Hello everyone, and thank you for having me today at this Outranking Virtual Summit. In this presentation, I would like to show you how to do a complete audit of your blog. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Luis, and I've been working on SEO for more than 6 years now. Currently, I work as one of the SEO managers at Photobox. I'm specifically managing the SEO strategy for the Spanish brand, which is called Hoffman, and the website hoffman.es. If you want to learn more about me, you can find me at my personal website, or you can send me an email to luis.bueno@photobox.com if you have any doubt about this presentation or any questions, or I can help you with anything. This is what we are going to see in this presentation. First, we'll define what is a blog audit and what we do it for. What are the benefits that you can get from this analysis? In the second section, we'll see how to do it, both from a content perspective and also from an architecture perspective. And finally, as a recap, I'll show you a roadmap so you can do this analysis yourself. What is a content audit and why you need to do it on your blog? A content audit or an SEO content audit is all about analyzing the performance of your content in Google results during a specific set of time. Usually when I've done this analysis, I set a whole year and look at the data during that set of time and see how I've performed or the content has performed. What's the main goal of all this analysis? Well, the main goal is having quality content, because that will be content that is not only optimized, but is also relevant for the user. And that's the most important, being able to resolve the search intent and all the questions and problems your users can have with that content. Why do you need an audit, or what are the benefits of having an audit? The first point will be all around quality. As we mentioned, you need to understand what is working for your audience and what is currently being accepted and driving traffic to your site. The second one is to avoid issues, and the main one will be cannibalization. It is quite common in the blog to have several articles that are talking about the same topic and kind of competing between each other to rank on Google. By doing a content audit, you will be able to identify them and decide what you can do with them. And finally, you want to have a clean and healthier site, because it doesn't matter. It's a lot better to have fewer blog posts that are performing well than having a high number of blog posts that are really underperforming and not driving any value to your users. What does Google say about it? I wanted to show you what John Mueller said in one of their Google Webmaster Hangout when he was asked about these kind of issues. Basically, what he pointed out was that low quality pages on your website or on your blog is a problem that he would fix. And he gives different solutions. The first one is just to remove them if you are not able to improve the quality, or the best case for them is trying to improve the quality of that content and make them useful and good pages on your site for your users. Once you've done the audit, and we'll see some examples, you will have to decide between these four options. So after you've analyzed all your data and you've gathered all your data and different metrics, you will need to choose what to do with your blog posts based on this list of actions. The first one will be to leave the pages as they are, and those will be blog posts that are actually working well and driving you traffic. There is probably always an opportunity to improve them, but those ones are the ones you want to keep. The second one is to improve them. And those are mainly focused on blog posts that has a potential to drive you traffic. And by potential, I mean blog posts that they have a high number of ranking keywords, or they have keywords ranking in the second page, or even you have a high number of impressions. That means that Google is interested in that content. The third situation will be to merge and redirect. And that is especially the case when you have several posts cannibalizing each other and competing each other. So you want to decide which of them is your main content or your main blog post, and try to merge the content of the others and redirect them to the main blog post. We'll see some examples later. And finally, you also want to decide which of the posts are not driving any value at all to your user and to your site. And for them, you will delete them. Those are the cases where the content is not driving any traffic, either from organic or from any other channel, and also is not linked externally. So basically it's not driving value, and that's why you are able to delete them. You will see in the example for Hoffman that we had to remove some of them, and it's actually a good decision. There is no harm in removing blog posts that are not driving value. Let's see how to do it. This first part of the section will be more focused on content, while the second one will be focused on architecture, informational architecture. So when we analyzed our blog post back in 2019, I realized that the majority of the traffic was coming from a blog post written in 2017. So we realized that the blog posts that we wrote in 2019 and 2018 were not driving actually much traffic. So we needed to think about our content strategy, and also we needed to understand why that specific blog post in 2017 was working so well. I'm not going to go to the step-by-step process that we follow, but I'll show you the template we've used to do this analysis. This is a template I've taken from an article from the Ahrefs blog that I'll link at the bottom of this presentation and show you so you can follow. Here is the spreadsheet we use to do this analysis. You can see, let me increase the zoom for that we pull out all the URLs we had in our blog, and we add different data from different sources. One of the main things I pulled out was the category of the blog, because I was interested in understanding which of the categories that we had works better. Some of the blog posts were included in 2 different categories, and therefore we had to include that subcategories. To do that is very simple. You just need to use a custom extraction in Screaming Frog, and you will be able to pull out the category data. Also, I took data from Google Search Console, such as click, search query, average position, or search volume. The idea of having clicks, it was just to give prioritization on the blogs that perform better. And then the search query was the main search query that the blog post was ranking for. And with that, we could analyze and understand which blog posts were cannibalizing with some others, because they were ranking for a very similar keyword, or even the same keyword. Then we also added some data coming from Google Analytics to understand the performance of the blog in general. So I was particularly interested in the bounce rate of the blog post, and also the number of transactions and revenue, because we had different content structure in our blog posts, and I wanted to understand if some of them were working better than the others, if in the occasion we showed some of our products, they were performing well, or we had an internal link to some other parts of the website, how they were performing. All this data, same as with Google Search Console, was taken across 1 year. And finally, I did two other extractions. One was the publication day. With that, I was able, again through a custom extraction in Google in Screaming Frog, to understand when the article was published and understand which year had the better performing, or which year was performing better in terms of the content we publish in the blog. And also I added data from backlinks, from Ahrefs, and internal links from Screaming Frog. This data helped me to prioritize and to decide which actions I wanted to make. As we mentioned before, we don't want to delete any blog post that is having an important backlink or important internal links pointing to it. Let's go back to the presentation. So here's the first example, and it's actually the blog post that we saw was performing very well from 2017. So we realized that we had a blog post published in 2017 that was actually performing very well. It was our top performer, but nobody optimized it for a while. Nobody looked at their content for a while. So the only thing we did was to look at the keywords that blog post was ranking in Search Console, trying to add it an extra variation of semantic keywords in the content and just republish. And just by doing that, you could see that we had a peak in clicks and an increase in clicks. The second scenario was the case where we had three or more different blog posts talking about the same topic. In this case, we had three different blog posts talking about wedding albums or wedding photo books. We knew that the three of them were competing each other for similar keywords. So what we did was to took the first one, which was our higher performer, our top performer in that range, and merge the content of the others into the first one to increase the amount of words we had in there, and also redirect the other two to the main one. So we ended up with one big blog post of around 2,500 words with all the authority and all the links that were pointing to the other two blog posts. And finally, out of the more than 300 blog posts that we had in our blog, we realized that at least 56 of them, and we were quite conservative at that time, we needed to remove them because they were not added any value. When you do this analysis, you can put any threshold that you find convenient. In our case, because our blog was small in terms of traffic, I decided that for the whole year, any article with less than 20 organic clicks or 40 total sessions in the year and didn't have any important backlinks, we were able to remove it without harming at all our SEO strategy. Once we analyzed the content, we also realized that we needed to do an assessment on how we structure our blog, because we were focusing on an assumption that we were going to have subscribers to read our blog every week or every day, but that was not actually the case. And this is exactly what I mean by being a magazine. Our old structure was showing the blog posts in reverse chronological order, and that means that the oldest blog posts that we wrote 2 years ago were quite difficult to find by the user because they were hidden in the paginations, and even for Google, they were not easy to reach and to crawl. Also, we thought that we had a frequent audience or a frequency of people visiting our blog, which when that wasn't the case, when we look at Google Analytics data, we realize that the majority of our visitors were new visitors, not actually returning visitors. And that means that 86% of the user were just people searching for ideas, inspiration, or just a solution for their problem, and they ended up in our blog. They were not really people who were interested to know what we were writing or what we were publishing every week. That's why we decided to change from a publication model, which is a model where basically you have more horizontal content, you have a kind of time schedule where you publish X amount of blogs every week, and you try to focus on an audience that you think is going to come back to you every week, to a library approach. In the library approach, you will focus more on the quality and the content and the depth of the content. So you don't really have a target to write 1, 2, 3 blog posts per week. You just want to have a very good article that is probably an evergreen content that is going to last for longer and is going to resolve your user's problem. The architecture for that one will change from just having all the blog posts hanging from the home page to having different topics that are below the home page, and after that you will have different articles about the same topics going in depth about subtopics of that same one. So you will have kind of hub topics that we identify. In our case, they were the categories we identified that our users were interested in. And you will have really good quality, in-depth content discussing all the subtopics about the main big category. And the idea behind that is that instead of thinking that you are going to have an audience that is going to come back to you as if you were a newspaper or a magazine, what you actually will have in your blog is a continuous stream of people that are looking for your help or are looking for an article to resolve your ideas. So you need to answer them. You need to answer the people who need your help right now, because then you will have people who is not yet aware of a problem. They will have one, and people who is starting to have a problem, and they will discover that problem and look for a solution. And when that exact time when they look for a solution is when you need to be there and need to have an article to give a response to that problem. Finally, I'll recap with this roadmap. So as we've seen, the first step in doing a content audit is doing all that analysis. Remember, you should take your data from Google Search Console, from Analytics, and also from your backlink software. Merging all that data will give you the advantage to understand which content is working well, which content you can improve, and which content you need to redirect or to delete. Then the second one will be to improve the main ones that are driving you actually traffic and underperforming well. I'm pretty sure you will be able to find some tweaks or to add extra content or better link or better interlinking to those blog posts that are actually working well. The second one will be to create that redirect mapping to avoid cannibalization. So you will identify the articles and blog posts that are talking about the same topic and try to merge them all into one. That way you will create quality pieces of content that are resolving what your users are searching for. The last one will be to have a clean blog post and delete the articles that we've analyzed and we know they are not driving any value. And as we mentioned, those are the articles that don't have any organic traffic and don't have any important link pointing to it. So there is no problem at all to delete them. Don't be scared to delete content that is not working or adding any value. Finally, you will do another assessment on your informational architecture, and for some of your blog posts that can be already in a good state. But in the case you have the same case as we had, where we had some old blog posts hidden and very difficult to reach to Google, you need to understand and to do the changes to modify that informational architecture and set that by topics. And once you've done all of that, you can use a tool as a outranking to start creating your new strategy and try to avoid the same mistake you've been doing until now. So you want to have a clear map of the topics you've already talked about, the subtopics you need to talk about, and try to create that evergreen and in-depth content. These are three of the useful resources that I found to do that. The first one is the Ahrefs article I mentioned, where you will find a good template to do all this analysis step by step. The second article is the same but in Spanish with kind of different template, but based on that Ahrefs template. And the last one is an interesting article that you could read to inform you about what's the difference between a library and a publication model. Thanks again for having me, and please reach to me if you have any questions, any doubt, or if you want me to explain you this process more in detail or go with you through your own analysis to help you. You can reach me in Twitter at Bueno SEO, or you can send me an email at info@luisbuenoseo.com.